today, we're going to be taking an approach that's going to be more geared towards the creative side of it and human psychology, because that never changes. We've had a couple of videos on it in the past. It's the thing that stays stable throughout the entire process. So when you build knowledge on top of knowledge on top of knowledge, that knowledge will hold, versus it all coming crashing down when you build out some information to understand how an algorithm works, because then it just changes. So we think that, 2026, we're going to be focusing, at least I'm going to be focusing on this more. And we wanted to start it off as, hey, we're right on the cusp of the end of 2025. What creative worked, what type of creative is working, and what we're going to do for next year.
How and why that happens is actually through Meta's called GEM, GEM. And that's something that we haven't really touched upon yet before. And GEM, I'm just going to do it in a very, very simplistic format. And I'm not going to take time to read this to you because it's there available to you. But this actually came out in November, and it's the generative ads model called GEM. So it's essentially what this means. And I'll kind of save you the multiple paragraphs, and I'll just kind of use like the imagery. But this portion is actually out of your control, but is happening in every Meta account, and also is the same way that Performance Max and Demand Gen also work. And it's very, 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 it's very cool, very unique, but unfortunately usually gets a lot of pushback from agencies or freelancers or even in-house people or employees or company, founders. It always gets pushback because it is something that is hard to understand, but also once you understand how this works, you have to come to terms with the fact that the media buyer is no longer in control. Not in like an ABO, CBO type of environment. You can still force it, but it actually doesn't work that well. When you start to force like an ABO or force ad spend, it breaks GEM, it breaks Andromeda, all the other stuff. So GEM, essentially, what this means is that I am an advertiser on Meta, and I produce different creatives. And those creatives are going to be matching a person's journey and a starting point, sort of like in the ads. And it actually is going to say, if I can refine the big group of ads into categories like the pinks and the purples and the greens, I understand that this is going to be an introduction. This is going to be more informational and educational. And then this is going to be maybe an offer. And they start to then identify the proper sequences. And so we always said, hey, Meta Andromeda develops a sequence to show ads in a particular format. And that's still true. What it's doing is it's learning sales techniques in real time off of your own clients. And it is understanding what is emotional, what is educational, what is actionable, and essentially is what they cut through knowledge, distillation, parameter sharing, and representation learning. The user facing vertical models essentially means is like, this is the group of ads, and this is a group of ads, and this is a group of ads. These could be in 3 different campaigns. This could be 3 different ad sets. This could be 3 different products. This could be 3 different categories. They're anything that is representative of your group of ads. So when we're looking through this type of modeling, we can sort of see the stickiness of the audiences inside of, I'll do this case study here. We can see the stickiness of the audiences to the pixel. This is also something that has to be very, very, very well understood, because now you can attack it with creative, and how you can attack it with creative. So Meta's stickiness of the audience simply means that if it has 1 million people that it wants to market to, it will not let them go. It will not change. It will not change. It will not let them go. It is building a population. It is building like an army of people that it wants to market to. And you can change campaigns, and Meta will protect the army. You can change the ads. Meta will protect the army. You can change the ad sets, the bidding strategies, whatever it is. Meta is not going to swap users types, archetypes. It's not going to use different interests. It's very, very protective over that group. So how do you manipulate that group? You have to do it with creative, and you have to do it with spend on the creative. And then the creative has to be in a generative ads model. That's where the creative diversification comes in, that we actually have discussed here. This is something that we've already talked about back in May and June. This is when this came out. This part here is just as important today as it ever has been. This is your content diversification. And then you have the SOP. The SOP as to how to actually test and iterate and how to do your concept hook and offer. That's also needs to be included. This is all surrounding Andromeda and Gem. Now, how does this work in practice? Well, because you have a sticky audience, and here comes good old-fashioned paint, because you have a fairly sticky audience like this. So this is the 10 million users, and this is now protected. If you say, hey, I want you to delete all the campaigns, it says, okay, so you delete the campaigns, it's going to delete the users. Nope, you delete your campaigns, this is protected. These core group of people, they're still there. They're just waiting for anything new. Meta's like, I take in 1 year of understanding your business and users and all this stuff. I've been building this stuff for a year. I'm not just going to take the 10 million users and throw it out the window, which also means I'm not going to take these 10 million people and I'm just going to swap them for 10 million new. It protects them. And your start in day kind of 1 of Meta all the way to today has essentially built these people. And the way that you built them is how you've been talking with them. So if you're like, hey, we've been selling a lot of product A, but now we got to sell a whole bunch of product B. It's not possible. You can't just be like, hey, Meta, exclude these 10 million users that you will die to protect. It will not get rid of them. You can change a campaign. You're like, hey, this campaign is going to go here, and now we're going to stop this campaign, and we're going to bring in another campaign. It's like, fine. You're bringing 2 different campaigns to the same user group. That's what we've been seeing. Well, interestingly enough, when we're looking at this one here as an example, women's feeder, the feeder strategy, we said, hey, we have a good amount of men's users in this company. We have a good amount of men's consumers. We need to start growing the women's. Okay, so how do we grow women? Well, I have my 10 million users of men, and it's not just going to stop marketing to them. So if I put a woman's ad there, it's going to go to men. Unfortunately, it is going to go to men. It has to, the Meta Andromeda Gem has to essentially see that these new ads are not going to perform very well to the fixed audience that it has before it will change. So how do we do that? Well, we have to have our creative diversification and our SOP. That is something that we've already covered. If you're part of the Skool community, you have all that information in there as well. But that is the SOP here. And then the creative diversification, along with a few other stuff that we were getting from Meta, like the diversification playbook and that kind of stuff as to how this is going to work. But then we have to say, okay, now what is it that we're telling the 10,000 or 10 million audience? Like what is it that we're going to showcase to them? Well, we put together a women's campaign and we create 16 ads. So actually 15. This is just the placeholder here that you get when you start the campaign. And now you have to look at, okay, women in Meta that we're trying to target, they are seeing essentially 65% of the time this one ad. What this essentially means is 40,000 of 77,000 of your entire spend in your creative. This is lesson number 1. Yes, you have 16 ads, but in reality, you have more than 50% of your spend on one ad. So now you don't have 16 ads, you have like 1. And then the rest of it starts to go down the line in terms of the spend. So if $40,000 is on this model here, or on this ad, what is the majority of new users that are just finding out about your company, about your website, about your product, about your offer? What are they seeing? Well, this one has a hook rate of 28%, not that great. Hold rate of 10%, actually not too bad. And that's why this one is ad number 1 is the hook. The hook rate is just below the threshold. 30% is the threshold of Meta to really start to showcase more and more and more, show that creative more often. You'll see it's been kind of flat right here. Well, that's also because in the last 4 days, actually, hold on, what was it? Oh, I think it was like last 2 days. I forget. I literally just did this and my hook rate was higher. Well, now it's 25. Yesterday? That's weird. I literally did this.
I've seen conversions actually get stripped. It's from weird. When I look at data like within a 24-hour range.
I just did this at noon today and it's changed. Anyway, that's That's fine, whatever it is. But the hook rate was good enough, and this has still having high ad spend on it. So basically the majority of my ad spend is on this one ad. This is what's starting the journey. Tall girls love these pants. Okay, tall girls love these pants. Let's pause everything here. We want to go into women's fashion. We sell pants, jackets, shirts, shoes, socks, necklaces, hats, everything. Okay, so let's do this.
So you're calling out your audience. Pause.
Yep, we're calling out the audience. We say, hey, women, like our pants? And we spent $40,000 of the $70,000 on that.
Tall women.
Tall women. Yeah, tall women. Exactly right.
Very specific in that.
Exactly. So let's do this. Let's pause there, because this is what in-platform metrics are not going to be able to showcase on the effect of your business. And this is where I think I had a consulting client call, and he goes, you know what you're really good at is doing this. And I was like, okay. He goes, you can't teach that. There's no SOP, and it's not really even, it's more based on gut feeling. I was like, that kind of is true. If we look at this here, we say the filter of the product type is, and then let's just say contains W dash. Then we look at this compared to the previous year, because it's the first time that we're really trying to market women's here. Actually, we started this on the 10th, I think, is when the women's feeder actually went live.
So we're just looking at product sales backend metrics to compare more ad spend push towards women's creative. How does that impact the product sales on the business side? Really that simple.
Exactly right.
At the end of the day.
Yep. And so here's what happened. What creative did we produce? Okay. We produced a video of women's pants. Okay. I'm just going to put this over here. Now, what kind of ad is this? It's a video ad, and it's titled Women's Pull On. Okay. The pull on pants. They pull on and they're tie pants. That's basically what it is. And then we have some jeans. Then we have things like chinos. And then we have last minute gifts. And then we have some UGC. Look at the sleeve length. So this is about shirts. We're talking about like the height call outs as to how things are proportional, so it doesn't look wonky and weird if you have long legs and a short torso, all that kind of stuff. But where's our spend going?
All towards the initial, just calling out people.
Well, what are we calling out? Women?
Tall women.
Yeah. What are we showing them?
Pants.
What kind of pants? What kind of pants?
Pull-on pants. Yeah.
Right. So when you look year over year, our pull-on in women's is up from 12 to 51,000 and 8 to 21,000.
Yeah.
Everything else is 10 to 13. The wool coat, that was actually doing pretty good, but the fleece is down. The yoga pants are kind of flat. So what's actually going up 20%? This one going from 12 to 50, and this is going from 8 to 21, and it's the pull on.
Yeah.
Now, real quick though, we have $155, $160, $180, $129, $106. Okay, so $155. This is $155. So we actually have $155, but we have one that is better. Yep. So we have ads here that are doing better, but our ad spend is going to the creative of women's pull-ons that's not reflective inside of here as actually having any sort of real impact on the business that we can track. But now our women's sales are up 20%. Well, not even gross profit. If I actually say the gross sales, not the profit, but the gross sales are up 25%, and pull-ons went from 25 to 80 and 22 to 41. So 80. So now 120,000, more than 10%, more than 15% of all of our women's sales are on this one ad. Why? Best hook rate, best click-through rate. Did I choose that? No, I wanted creative diversification on like a whole bunch of other things. But because we did a better job at the hook and hold rate of this ad, the thing that we have to look at is, okay, well, we're spending the majority of money on that one ad. The hook rate, the hold rate is good. Andromeda is now going to take every single thing else in this ad set incorrectly and say, hey, Caden, we know you want tall pants, but have you seen our shirts? Okay,
Yeah.
that we failed. We spent $1,200 on shirts. Are we sell more women's shirts, Caden? No. Why did we throw $1,300 out the window? I don't know. So we only have one ad that's really working? Uh-huh. Okay. We can kind of see where we up a bit.